Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. We've got a very important video today, and it's on a bunch of new huge clients that have not been announced. There are two I want to focus on today because the implications are major in my opinion and can expand much more than just the surface level. And for those who don't know, we'd have to thank EtherSquare for this great research and compilation, so check out his Twitter and Substack for valuable insights into his thoughts on Palantir. What I wanted to go over today is the highlights of the dossier that he dropped, and there are big names with big implications that I said for working with Palantir. So the link is down in the description if you want to go through this on your own. But first is the amount of links generated so far. So for this dossier at this point, he has found hundreds of links over time, and you can see this is all started back in 2021. So this is after they went public, and of course a lot of interest started for Palantir in the retail community. But most recently, for Q2 2022, we've gotten 124 new links generated for that latest quarter, so definitely excited for future dossiers and seeing how these numbers can be affected over time, but always great work to see the progress that is accumulated. And this slide is very important, not just because of the big 971 links shown on the number there, but the 85% activity rate. So for those new to this, EtherSquare not only locates these links and figures these out, which is already hard on its own, but is always testing these out to ensure that they are still active and getting that percentage rate there. This is very important because with deactivation of links, this can happen for a variety of reasons, of course. So we don't know on the individual level on reasonings of why that's happening, but the higher percentage is the better, of course. But for some examples of why they'd be deactivated over time, could be just the company deciding not to use Palantir, or maybe a trial period is just ending and they're changing the name, or the company just so chooses to transition to a different name there. There are different code names even within a certain company, so links can vary and used differently throughout organizations, and there could just be a preference, of course, to change things. So depending on what works best for them, but it's a good indicator if something is still active over time. Now, the juicy news. Who are the two big new clients that I want to go over specifically today? So first, got to start with Berkshire Hathaway Energy. This is a very big one because it's Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, and this is a major client if anyone could work with them to start with, especially on the energy arm just because of how big it is. Because it is so large for them, first of all, but it also makes the most sense considering you'd want to create margin around fluctuating energy prices and fuel prices that may be out of your control sometimes. And wanting to optimize every cent around that is a huge deal. And with these organizations being so big, especially when you're doing like a utility, for example, you want to be able to see all your different plants, all the different things happening in between them, and how you can actually manage that. Now, what's also major, though, is that this appeared 2 months ago and is still active. So if it's still a trial period, they're still able to use it even after a month per se. So it's a good thing that they are still active, and hopefully these continue to stay active or even expand more to where we see more related links to these companies. And the biggest implication, though, with working with Berkshire Hathaway is just the sheer opportunity. They hold many stocks, of course, which is what they're known for, and holding billions or hundreds of billions when you think of Apple. But they also outright fully own many non-public companies. And this is the opportunity for Palantir to showcase they are industry agnostic, considering everything under the sun can be managed by Berkshire Hathaway. They range from insurance arm, think of Geico, to railroads like BNSF, but also the utilities, manufacturing, consumer products, services, and retailers. That's how they break down their numbers on their annual report. So there's just so much opportunity for Palantir. If they got into the energy side, they can showcase what they can do. And for the scale of the businesses with Berkshire Hathaway, just look at the first quarter of 2023. This is on their earnings report. There was $85.3 billion of revenue in here in total. You'll see the biggest is their insurance side, around $22 billion. But regardless, even their smallest one, which is just for BSNF Railroad, is $6 billion in revenue. And you can see right next to it for Berkshire Hathaway Energy, that's $6.4 billion. So it is kind of close there. Now, for me personally, I'd like to see them get into the manufacturing side because we know Palantir has many ways to get into these kind of customers and showcase their value. When it comes to supply chains and working with suppliers or their customers, or even doing analytics on the production line itself and implementing new technology there, at $18.2 billion for Berkshire, that's plenty of opportunity for Palantir and a lot of entry points possibly for them to showcase what they can do. Now, for them to actually do this, we'll see. It may take time for them though, because it sounds like they may be trying to test out what Berkshire Hathaway Energy turns out like and if there's actual improvement from Palantir. But who knows? Maybe they're already starting this, but we just don't know about it yet. So hoping over time to see more customers related to Berkshire Hathaway, especially the non-energy related ones, because this can really demonstrate how sticky they are, bringing value to where the customer wants to expand their services because it's going to make the overall holding company successful. Now, there are a few other large ones on the dossier, of course, but I want to concentrate on this one next. I think it's called Daman, which is from Abu Dhabi. It's their largest health insurance provider. This is major because it is a healthcare related one first. And don't think of it like a health insurance payer in the US where all they do is just manage the money per se, because this is a national health insurance for the country and they're managing 2.6 million lives in the United Arab Emirates or UAE. And this spans across a huge network of 28 plus hospitals, over hundreds of clinics, and working with over 3,000 medical facilities. Now, it doesn't sound that big, of course, but if you're doing it for a whole country in that area, in that region, even though it's not that big, that's huge because you're managing it as a whole. And I would like to think of this kind of like the NHS, but for Abu Dhabi. Now, what's big also besides being healthcare related is just the idea of Palantir working in the Middle East. We know geopolitically this is a strategic location and hotbed, of course, close to many adversarial countries or war-torn countries that aren't necessarily fully aligned with Western nations. So it's a big deal geographically, of course, to do business there. But then the next thing that comes to mind, besides war in the Middle East, is oil and energy. This is speculation, of course, on my part, but this can be sowing the seeds of at least getting into the region for Palantir, as long as it's with relatively allied countries, at least with the US. We may not fully agree with their governing style or system, but at least if they're an ally of us, it may make Palantir at least consider working with them. Now, when it comes to government work, that's probably not something I would hold my breath for necessarily, but for Palantir to work with these governments, it would be kind of dicey, depending on the human rights side. But commercially, I don't see them completely knocking that out there, concerning healthcare is a huge opportunity, and it is kind of government related, of course, but especially in those kind of countries. But also with that nationwide coverage like this, I think it's really important for them to showcase the strengths of Palantir and their products. So in the end, even if Palantir doesn't work with them on a government level, if they're able to work with the companies there and show their value commercially, over time, I think this is good for Palantir regardless. So this is just a taste of the dossier and the highlights. It's always great to see progress here, and even noting more links are even showing up for existing companies. So this is always great to see when their clients are trying to use Palantir some more. Expansion is great within the customers. It's important to show your stickiness and ensure that network effects can even take effect over time. And I do like the examples you put for the existing clients as well with Deloitte and PwC. With consulting arms like that, they are sharing this kind of technology with their clients and showing the possibilities of Palantir. I know it may be early to say that they're fully clients and can possibly be testing out Palantir still, like maybe they're in a trial period, but just let me know below and I'll see you in the next video.